What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers are coming off of a huge win against the Dallas Mavericks and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they've had three very notable wins in their last four games. Lakers are back to 500, and they've looked like the team that we've expected them to be, right? They have looked like the team that could contend with anybody, beat anybody, and potentially win an NBA championship. They were locked in, they were focused, they were just locked in defensively, taking care of the basketball, hitting shots, moving and sharing the basketball. It wasn't just LeBron James and Anthony Davis giving you 70% of the Lakers' points, right? You had D'Lo and Reeves, and then basically everybody that played scored. And now they're going into a game against the Brooklyn Nets, who Brooklyn has only won one game out of the last 10, so the Lakers should win that game. You know, the problem is, and the reason I'm not like, I'm not like, yes, Lakers are back, baby, is because that's the problem, is the fact that, like, the Lakers play the Nets, and there is even a concern that they might lose to the Nets. That is a real question mark, right? Because, look, the Lakers, I do believe, will beat Brooklyn. They've done a good job of beating the bad teams this year. I know they had that loss against the Spurs, but there was many circumstances in that big one, including Anthony Davis, right? Outside of that, they've basically handled business against all of, like, the bad teams. So I do expect them to get the job done. But to me, it's like the Mavs game in particular, because they were good in the Thunder game, but they were even better in the Mavs game. To me, it's like, unfortunately, that Mavs game was an outlier rather than a constant, right? It was just this anomaly rather than like, oh, this is who the Lakers are. But if the Lakers get back to being that level of play and they can consistently provide that, look, everyone has bad games, everyone has bad moments, right? The Lakers are going to have other, even if the Lakers do play like that every game, right, from here on out, and let's say the Lakers go and all of a sudden they're winning 80% of their games, right? That's still only 80%. You're still going to lose games. You're still going to have an off night. You're still going to have a night where a team just shoots the lights out, right? It's just how it goes. I don't mind that. But the problem is, it's like the Lakers have like a game like Dallas, and then the next three, they're awful. And it's just like, can they put it together? If the Lakers can put it together, if the Lakers can keep it together, right? All of the talks of the big trade, the Zach LaVines, the DeJounte Murray, right? Lakers are clearly trying to focus and hone in on DeJounte Murray more than Zach LaVine. We've gotten multiple reports that the Lakers aren't interested in trading for Zach LaVine, right? That it's basically unlikely that it'll happen at this point. Okay, that's fine, right? But unless you're fully confident that D'Lo is willing to leave, right? Which I wouldn't be so sure. I mean, how many teams are going to pay him? What does he make? Like $18.5 million next year, something like that? How many teams are going to pay him $18.5 million? And to me, I think D'Lo, he wants to be a Laker, but I think it's just based on his role, right? He wants like a legit role. And he's gotten it the last few games and has delivered. And look, I'm not saying the Lakers don't need a trade. They absolutely need a trade. And look, even if the Lakers were top three team, if you can get better, you get better, right? If there is a deal that makes sense for now and the long term, you do that, right? If the Lakers, let's say, have a 50% chance of winning the championship this year, if you can even make it 51%, you do that. Do whatever it takes to go and win. That I'm all for, right? But if the Lakers can show, like, hey, we can be consistent. We can be this team that you saw against Dallas, and we can put it together and be one of the better teams in the league, like many thought in the offseason, then I wouldn't hate if the Lakers held off on, especially if they're not going to trade for Zach LaVine, which even if they trade for Zach LaVine, I've always maintained it's what else are you getting, right? And what is the cost? If DeJounte Murray is going to cost a ton, which I'm not like super sold on DeJounte Murray with the Lakers, I'm just not. And then on top of that, Zach LaVine, he's the one that I kind of want more. But also, again, it's like, what else are you getting besides Zach LaVine? You need other pieces besides just Zach LaVine, right? If the Lakers can continue to play the way that they've played, and there isn't a deal for like that blockbuster player, that big star type player, I don't hate the idea of them just upgrading around the edges, holding on to their first round pick, and going into the draft day with potentially 3 firsts that are tradable and a bunch of tradable salaries. I don't hate that idea, right? I mean, even if the Lakers were to get like a DeJounte Murray or something, he'd be very tradable if it doesn't work out. And then you'd have a bunch of draft picks and stuff like that. But I don't hate the idea, like the reports of like Colin Sexton and stuff like that, right? Now, I would not do a D'Lo for Sexton trade. It just doesn't make sense to me. But if you could get Sexton and a couple other pieces, right? Maybe get Sexton and like Kelly Olynyk, and if the Lakers are really that interested, okay, maybe. But if it's me, I would rather look to keep D'Lo, right? And then try to flip Gabe Vincent, which would be tough. But if you can entice them in some way, right? Maybe give up another young, because especially for a guy like Colin Sexton, right? You would be helping them get off of Sexton's salary. What would they rather pay? $11 million a year for the next 2.5 years, or Colin Sexton, who's making like $18.5 million over the next like 4? So you're saving them some money, right? You give up Max Christie or a Maxwell Lewis or something like that, and a couple seconds, right? And you work something out. You convince them like to give up a Sexton or something, and then you just upgraded at the backup point guard depth, right? And you could even go Sexton and like D'Lo in spots, because Sexton is more of a 2 guard than he is a point guard. But I think off the bench, I think he'd be very solid. I think he could have an impact if he can kind of get back to being good defensively, which he has not been this year, but he has been known as kind of like that pit bull defender. I don't hate the idea. Or same thing, like Tyus Jones. Can you get like a Tyus Jones and like a Daniel Gafford, right? Like that would be solid. That would be great, right? So if you can do stuff like that and figure out ways to kind of upgrade in like bench depth and upgrade in like certain areas, even like I've talked about it before, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, right? Get some maybe complimentary 3-and-D guys, but you're not selling the big pieces. You're not selling the key core guys, right? You're just kind of upgrading in certain areas. Then I don't hate that. I still prefer the big impact trade if it's there and it makes sense. Because I do still have concerns about like, can D'Lo or Reeves consistently be that third guy, right? I do think D'Lo especially can, but how long is he going to get the opportunity to play the role that he's playing right now? My fear is that D'Lo's going to have one bad game, and then LeBron's going to be like, all right, I need to stop playing off the ball, right? Like right now, LeBron's been good off ball and kind of letting D'Lo do his thing. My concern is that like D'Lo has one bad shooting night, and then it's like, all right, well, that was fun while it lasted, and now it's right back to old habits. So I don't know. It's just, so I do kind of lean towards like, I still think the Lakers should get that third guy. I don't think anybody on this Lakers roster should be untouchable. No one's been good enough this year to where they're all untouchable. Even Reeves. If you could clearly upgrade Reeves, which I'm not saying to Colin Sexton or anything like that, but like if you can clearly upgrade Reeves, right? Like, I'm not opposed to trading Austin Reeves for DeJounte Murray or Zach LaVine. Thing is if you got DeJounte Murray, you would have to trade D'Lo at that point, because there's no point in having both of those guys be point guards, and D'Lo is not going to be okay coming off the bench and stick around long term. So you're going to have to trade him at that point. But again, I mean, if you could trade him and upgrade into other pieces, then fine. But if we get the hope is the Lakers continue to be good between now and the trade deadline, which buys Rob Pelinka time to find quality deals. Because the problem is if the Lakers have to do something right now, it's probably going to cost them more than it would at the trade deadline. Because come the trade deadline, if these teams haven't found any other suitors, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, let's just take the Lakers deal, right? Because we don't want to not get anything for these guys, right? So the Lakers would have more leverage the sooner you get to the trade deadline, right? Where, look at like last year with the Russell Westbrook thing. It was like, oh, 2 first-round picks just to unload Russ, right? And everyone was trying to fleece the Lakers. But then we got to the trade deadline and it was like, oh, we only had to trade 1 protected first. And we got enough pieces to get to the conference finals. Right? So if you get to the trade deadline, you'd be in better shape. Problem is the Lakers have to weather the storm long enough to get to the trade deadline. But if we get to the trade deadline, which is still like 3 weeks from now or whatever, then I would be fine if the Lakers have played that well that long. Because now that would have been like a month of sample size of like, okay, the Lakers are turning around here a little bit. Then if the only deals that are on the table are just kind of upgrade around the edges, then I'm okay with it. Right? Because like I mentioned, you go into the offseason, let's say you get I don't know, just kind of throwing out names out here right now. But let's say you get like Colin Sexton, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Andre Drummond or something like that as like a backup. Again, just kind of throwing out names, right? And you basically get 3 guys that are helping now, upgrading bench depth, whatever, and you basically keep your core guys, right? Well, then now you could go into the offseason, you'd have guys like Reeves, Jared Vanderbilt will become available. Not saying that they should trade any of these guys, but if a deal is there that makes sense, then sure, right? Like, if Reeves, Vando, you'd have Dorian Finney-Smith, you'd have Colin Sexton, you'd have, if you have Rui still, you'd have Rui, right? If you traded D'Lo, then you don't have D'Lo, but if you didn't trade D'Lo, then you'd have D'Lo, right? Like, you'd have a handful at least of tradable salaries that could make sense to maybe go, like, maybe Donovan Mitchell becomes available in the offseason, right? And it's like, okay, well, now the Lakers have salaries to match and guys that maybe make sense for Cleveland because they're probably not going to hit tank mode because they still have Garland and Mobley and all those other guys, right? So it's like, okay, well, we have guys that could make sense and maybe even be better fits for them. On top of that, we have 3 first-round picks. Maybe we could throw our hat in the ring for a bigger name, right? Like, again, if, like a Mitchell or somebody becomes available. I don't hate that idea, right? I mean, I'd like them to go make a move to build a bona fide contender, but that move has to also be there, and it has to make sense. Right? You can't just make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. But if something is there, then make it happen. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Are you okay with the Lakers just kind of making moves around the edges? Do you think, no, you got to go get that star? Do you think the Lakers can maintain the level in which they have been playing thus far? Or do you think, like, no, I have no faith in that, which I would completely understand if you're somebody that feels that way. But again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I would love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.